There we go. All right. This is what happens when you use multiple computers to do different streams. Okay, so what am I doing today? I have to let's wait for people to roll in, I guess. But pretty much, I might have to do some work because I gotta dial in a recipe for this guy. So we'll do that, and we can fill in time. But it has been a while since I have tried SSPMPs, for better or worse, and I decided to whip this guy out. So this is my Ode Gen 1 with 64mm SSPMPs. I don't know what generation burrs those are. I think they made iteration changes, so I could be wrong. But this is a grinder that has been hyper alloy lined. So it has been aligned by the legend Robert Alloy. I gave this to him 2 years ago, or a year and a half. I can't remember. It's been a while. And he aligned it because he was using it for espresso. So there's this article that he did where he was comparing the Niche Zero to the SSP-MPs, and this was what he was comparing the MPs with. But I'm probably not going to do any espresso today. We're just going to do filter brewed, and we're going to just use a automated machine because it makes my life easier. But the way this is calibrated is this is actually calibrated for espresso. So for all of the pour over stuff, it's all the way back here. But this is the thing with these MPs are just, I mean, it might be hard to hear because we have like a noise canceling thing on the microphone and whatnot, but these burrs just sound horrible. Touch should be around here. Yeah, there's touch. You know, we can throw in some coffee in here, and yeah, but pretty much these are like just incredibly loud burrs. I don't even know. Is this a good place to sell my MPs in HU 64mm? If I were you, I don't know. It depends on what you're doing, but I think you should just buy cast. Like if you want the middle ground, just buy cast. I haven't had a lot of coffee today, so I'm not really awake either. But you know, we're gonna make some coffee together, and we'll go from there. Unimodal V1s are more. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I'm just not a fan of these burrs that are this finicky nowadays. You know, like the challenge that I have here. I'll grind some coffee and we'll throw it at like this grind setting here. I have a lot of random coffees here, but I do need to make a recipe for the X Bloom because we got this new coffee from Pear Cupworks coming out on my secret stash, and I think this is a very surprising coffee. Unexpected. Got a dank coffee on secret stash. So yeah, we're probably gonna dial that in while we talk more about the MPs. So yeah, that is the plan for today. Is I am going to do a little bit of work while also talking about these guys. I can't run everything all at once because we are gonna trip something, but I'm gonna go and use this thing. I have not ever paired this machine to our new app, but let's find it out. But yeah, you know, I'm really curious because it's been a while since I've used this, and my complaint about MPs is that I think the hit rate, the biggest issue that I have with MPs is mainly the hit rate that I was getting. Is that I want to say 80% of the brews, there's something wrong with it. I don't know if I mean like wrong, but it's just like they're super finicky. If you don't use the right water, if you don't use the right coffees, if you don't brew correctly, you get hit with a lot of just weirdness. Generally speaking, I kind of find this as like some form of harshness, but it's been a while, so we're gonna try it again. And what I have generally experienced with MPs in a manual pour over context, less so espresso, is if you let the bed dry out, there is weird astringency or ashiness that comes through. And what ended up happening is when I'm trying to brew with these, it's like, okay, I need to go really, really coarse. And then you wouldn't experience this at the coarser grind sizes. But also then you would kind of be forced to brew in that, coarser, lower agitation or manual agitation world, and things would kind of taste a little weird. So anyway, I am going to brew something on this X Bloom because we're going to make a recipe, and then we're going to use this, and we're going to suffer together. The passenger video is really cool. I went to that cupping. It was yesterday, and I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome, and I wanted to get it up today. But this is the coffee. I think it's on the website right now, but this is coming on Secret Stash. It is... Will this focus? It is the Millenio Reposado Natural. Oh, scary. But this is a very funky coffee, for better or worse. So anyway, I'm gonna make a real quick recipe for this coffee on this because we gotta do that for some work, and then I will go and suffer potentially. So yeah, I already am seeing people are liking MPs with Pulsar Flippy. Yeah, I think this works decently with those low agitation brewers. Yeah, I'm gonna actually kill off the Discord invites for now because it's complicated. We experienced this the last time we streamed. Every time I'm just gonna close this so you guys can't. Unfortunately, the Discord is complicated right now. Basically, every time we add a Discord link, I used to have the Discord link in the descriptions, and we had to kill off all the invites because we got some random OnlyFans bots coming in. Okay, let me do something now. So I'm gonna dial in a recipe. So how we dial in recipes is, well, this is my recipe for these coffees, but this is a super funky coffee. Oh my god. Holy shit. And just gonna usually and then the funny thing is I'm going to use Studio here to weigh out my coffee. But we got a million things on the countertop right now. And then we'll move everything aside and we'll go and actually brew with the MPs. I'll also throw some coffee in these MPs so you guys can hear how loud they are. But man, they are loud. That's kind of one thing I'm not... It's been a while since I've had to use MPs, or it's just like, wow, these are loud. Because I just use Gen 2 a lot now, the Gen 2 burrs, because those are awesome. And, nowadays, the way I look at coffee, or this is just like maybe the privilege of being able to try higher clarity burr sets, is that, you can get burrs nowadays that are, I would argue, way clearer. I'm talking higher price point, of course, way clearer without all of these problems. Like the problems that MPs have is that they're weirdly finicky. It's like very water specific, very coffee specific, very even brew method specific, and you kind of just don't have to deal with those as you move up to some of the nicer burr sets, and you get everything the MPs do, but better. And even I would argue something cheaper, like even something like a ZP6 would be pretty interesting to run with. But anyway, I need to make this recipe for this this coffee. It is a pretty funky coffee, and I am talking about some stuff. So usually, if guys were curious on brewing very funky coffees, I hope I don't get kicked out of the Discord. um, so basically, let me quickly tell you guys about how I usually brew these funkier coffees. Now, this is not the worst coffee I've tasted in terms of funkiness level. And when we are building a curated subscription for a lot of people, it's so hard to find coffees that work for everybody. It depends on what types of... It's like, this is my curated subscription on XBloom, and 1 week we'll have something really, really clean. Other weeks we might have something really funky. But mainly it's also a showcase of roasters. So being able to showcase roasters like Pear Cupworks, Kim Hawk, it's very fun, even if it's for, even if it's a coffee you might not necessarily like. But generally speaking, on how I approach these weird, funky coffees, is you brew lower agitation. So this machine that brews about 3 mils a second, and also kind of depending on the roast level of said funky coffee. Generally, you start like with a high. I like to do maybe a slightly hotter bloom, and then really start decreasing temperature. So I'm just building a recipe real quick here. But a lot of my recipes, if you have ever paid attention on XBloom, they're very similar, and that's just because of how I personally like coffee presented. So, and then I'm gonna try to wake up by drinking all this coffee. And then I got to keep up with the chat. So yeah, the ode is challenging in the sense. So this is the thing, is that maybe my experience with MPs has been absolutely horrible because it's in an ode, right? This is a very, very possible answer. And I wouldn't be surprised by that, where it's like, oh, the reason why you dislike these burrs so much is because, you're brewing it with a substandard grinder that, the burr carrier, when you're talking about this type of burr set, where I think, if the burr carrier is not perfect, the flaws of the burrs are even more exposed, right? Or like the challengingness of these burrs are even more exposed. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But, I would say that I've had the privilege of using these burrs in something like in something like P64, all of that, and I don't know if it's much better. It sounds better, but it's still like pain. So anyway, I'm gonna brew this coffee real quick. And we're brewing with the OG XBloom. So water for MPs, I think you should go for as low TDS and as soft as possible. Or, that's one method. Wow, okay. Coffee's pretty crazy. Let me link this in the chat in case some of you guys are funk enjoyers. But generally how I brew is I'm doing like a larger saturation at the beginning at, I think it's 92 Celsius. And then I'm kind of, I need to change one of these temperatures, but usually I go like 92, down to 91, down to 90. Because this is still a lightly roasted coffee and the flow is very fast. So, solubility seems to be very good and whatever, like, I don't know what the words are here, but the point is like, how do we pull out a lot of these acidity notes without pushing the processing to the weird, bitter, off flavor world? And that's really what's been done by, like, if you start doing low agitation, you start tapering off the temperatures, is it can kind of help round things out. So let me link this coffee in the chat real quick. Oh yeah, if you're gonna go to Pear tomorrow, let's see if they have this here. I would be really curious if you could try this coffee at the shop. I believe this is in, yeah, so this is what I'm brewing right now real quick. But yeah, it is a Costa Rican natural. I believe it's anaerobic natural, or there is a anaerobic step in this somewhere. So yeah, we're gonna taste some of this. I'm gonna drink some funky coffees. Now, what I will say is MPs. Here's the thing. Let me actually, while this is brewing, we can throw some coffee in here and we can go from there. Maybe we'll throw some of this Pear Cupworks coffee in. What I will say that when you're evaluating some of these burrs and some of these grinders, I think it helps if you're using cleaner wash coffees or things that won't, influence anything, if things are more consistent. This grinder does not have an ionizer in it. I need to get an RDT bottle, but if I take some of these beans and I throw them in just for purpose. So my pour-over grinder is actually very far back here, and then my espresso is all the way up here. But like this is my Corsis, which is my ears are hurting. Yeah, that's the kind of world we live in. MP is very, very screechy. In something like a P64, they are very, very quiet until you throw coffee in them. It's kind of the same thing like the DF83V. You throw your coffee in there, or when the grinder is running, it is mega, mega quiet. But as you start adding coffee in there, it is pretty miserable. Okay, so this is the coffee. This is only about a 2 minute and 30 something brew, and you can already see how dark this is, because a lot of these coffees that are this, I don't want to say like this process, but it's just like you don't need that super, super long contact time for it to work out. 1 second. Vacuum up some coffee grounds. It is helpful to also have a hand vac. I've learned that from a lot of other people. Cool, let me give this a taste and then we'll switch over to MPs. A grinder is quiet. There are grinders like the Levercraft Ultra where it is quiet when you throw coffee in it. But I'm saying it's like way, way louder. But maybe it is the pitch that's super loud. But yeah, okay. Usually these recipes work out. You would put... I literally had a Vivario in the closet. Dude, that's crazy. Have I tried Coffea Circular? Yes, I have. I think they're great. I just think their website is very overwhelming and their existence in the world is very overwhelming when you buy a bag of coffee and you're like, what the hell is going on? Coffee's great. But yeah, when the bag of coffee has over 20 words of flavor descriptors, it's a little goofy. Okay, here we go. So if you're curious, it's probably really hard to see, but my coarse grind size, or my coarses setting here is just a little coarser than what I would use for generally my pour-overs. Or even something on Studio, which is what we're going to do. We're going to use Studio for everything. I don't know what brewer we're going to use yet. We have choices here. We can do S-Works, we can do Omni, we can... I don't know what else we can do, but yeah, let me get an RDT bottle. But yeah, this is the thing, I don't know if you guys can see this, but with a lot of the odes, or when you're using this grinder, ends up happening is there a lot of coffee always gets back there. Kind of fixed with the ionizer, but usually you just whack it and things work out. How many notches from chirp is it at? I don't know, let's count. 1. So, also with MPs, sometimes that chirping sound that you hear is actually coffee being ground. This is a general thing with most coffee grinders, but it's like hilarious because it's that same exact screechiness that you'd kind of hear of burrs touching. Okay. My recipe for this coffee is pretty good. Okay. So we have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 20. So about 21 to 23, depending on how close these burrs are. Now, of course, we're gonna get some wobble and stuff as you throw coffee in there. But yeah, it's like decently coarse. I don't know if you slow feed. If you slow feed the ode, I don't know, because there is an auger in here. I don't know if it does much. You can ask Moonwake, but the business is doing really well, and I have to go and do an update. There's a new espresso machine on the truck. It is dope. Things have been a bit more upgraded. It's been about 2 to 3 months since the last time we did a good update video, so we're gonna do an update video on that. I've just been traveling a lot, so I haven't had the chance to film that. That's a big update. And then the second thing is that they are all in. So people are now full-time in coffee, and they're doing the shop. They're gonna do take the truck as far as possible. But yeah, truck does well. If you do want to get a machine, reach out to Voltage. There already are other people who have Cybertrucks who have already reached out to Voltage, and pretty cool. Get that set up. Okay, all right. I gotta get the RDT, and we're gonna suffer together, guys. I only have a few more of these X-Bloom filters, but I have the friggin' Zero Hero paper filters. They're a little tall, but we're not using our own grinder here. We're not using the grinder in here. We're gonna use MPs. Also, we should figure out what coffee we're going to brew. We have some choices here. I have all of the newer Say coffees with the exception of, or I don't have them here right now, but I have some of the other good Say coffees. But I have Wurka, so fresh crop Ethiopian. We got the Wurka. Actually, it's a little fresh. We have Finca Surya. Very exciting coffee. This was roasted 617. I have another fresh crop Ethiopian, Halo Hartume. And then I have another Pepe coffee. This is the San Pedro, roasted 617. And then we have, I think this is a Colombian Pink Bourbon. Yes. Jose Martinez coffee. Actually, this is probably the coffee I will go with. Maybe, the funny thing is I might bring some of these Pepe coffees to New York, literally taking it back to where they came from, but that is where I'm going to be next week. Okay. I do not know if they have a discount code, but you can work something out with them. Just reach out. There have been a few people who have bought the San Remo Cafe Racer. I think that is such a great machine to pair with the truck if you're looking at that, but definitely, you can reach out to them and take a look at that. Yeah. I'd save the Pepes for something easier to dial. You're 100% correct. Okay, let me get the RDT bottle. 1 second, guys. Somebody asked, when is X Bloom Studio coming to the EU? Hopefully before the end of the year. We're getting there. And then Flippy, if you're going to see Kim Hawk tomorrow. I don't know if he'll be in the shop, but this is a really interesting coffee. So you just get hit with like all of these the natural red fruit flavors. Then it goes into like a cacao nibs, like a chocolate kind of thing. It's super sweet of a coffee, and this is a very interesting varietal. I've never tasted a varietal like this, but I think this does taste like, slightly lower elevation coffees, which is what, those Costa Ricans are. Very tasty though. All right. Let's see. What are we doing, guys? All right, we're gonna weigh out some coffee. Let's do that Say Jose Martinez. This is a really, I've actually been excited about this coffee. Now, will we be disappointed? That is the question. Now, the thing with MPs is always I look for something in the back. Usually you get like a lot of nice acidity, a lot of good stuff, and then it's really the stuff in the back where it's like, oh, you let the thing bloom too long, you let it sit, you let it dry out, or you didn't pour water on it correctly, or you use the wrong coffee, you over extracted, right? You taste a lot of that type of problem in the cup. So it's like 10% good usually, and then 90% pain, and that has been my experience with MPs for a very long time, for about a year and a half. So, but we're gonna revisit. Oh man, this coffee's amazing. Wow. That's pretty great. I think we'll do 15 gram doses. Let me also make the recipe on the studio so we can go from there. Because we'll dial in with this coffee, and then, yeah. I'm debating if I should bring this machine to New York. Don't know yet. We're going to be doing, I'm going to be doing some events there, or I'm going to be doing a event. Might be able to do another event at Multimodal, but we're doing an event with Wilfred Lamastis. And then also we're going to try to film some cool stuff with our travel case. So this is how we usually travel with these machines. We got this little case here. It's got the logo, and then, the machine and everything fits in it. It's super cool. Ooh, very, very cool. So, yeah. That is what I check in all the time now. It depends on what you... Okay, I don't know. Like, Cybertrucks, just... If I were you, you can message Moonwake. They will tell you things to a better idea. But it depends on what you're trying to do. You could run a regular espresso machine, and it won't cost you that much money. But it also depends on what you're going for, But yeah, anyway, just MP. Yeah, you should just put Cass in those in that grinder. Okay, so I think we need to go slightly finer for this. So mine is set to. I'll set it. Usually I was brewing say up like here, but that's on a hand pour. So we can probably go slightly coarser because we're going to be doing some of this this lower agitation stuff on studio. sounds like something bad is happening. It's like screeching. Ugh. And then with Ode, maybe this is why I have a horrible experience with MPs, is I just do this to the Ode. Anyway. You're at Say 2 weeks ago? I'll be at Say next week. Probably. Okay. I need to connect to this machine. Let's do this. I don't have any carafes anymore. Well, oh, one thing with the MPs, just knock everything over. Wow, this coffee smells amazing. With MPs, I always, at least on the Ode, I always found there to be a lot of static. Yeah, this seems about the right grind size. But maybe we'll do like 2 SSP MP streams, right? It's just like, I finally brought it over here. And it is time to suffer. Let me get a carafe. Like, I have so many X blooms on my app, I don't know which one's which. This is the challenge when... There we go. I have so many of these machines. Does this fit under? It doesn't fit under. Let's do this. I'm still enjoying this Pear Cupworks coffee. It's actually pretty nice. And let's look at this recipe. So I have this 1 to 17 recipe. I do think these burrs do really well in that 1 to 17 plus world, if you can do it right. But this is my very default 1 to 17 recipe. It's just 60 mils, 95 Celsius, with the agitation. This is for Omni Dripper, by the way. I run it at the full max 3.5 mils a second. Then it's 60, 50, 50, 50, 50, and then 45. Kind of swapping between spiral and center pours, but this is what I've been using for a lot of grinders. Usually works. Don't know if it will work for this one. But let's kind of observe, or what I'm going to do, it's going to be hard for you guys to see, but usually what happens is if I let the bed dry out too much, a lot of off flavors get into the cup when I brew with MPs. However, there are still really nice aspects using these burrs. Like, you know, these are high clarity burrs. It's just that if you're used to doing something like a 60-second long bloom, you know, that is the type of stuff where you might get, you know, that nice acidity, that nice extraction, but it's usually stuff in the back that has problems. It's also the same thing if you've ever brewed something with, I guess another example would be, if you've ever brewed filter with a niche 0, you get harshness and you get muddiness. You don't get the muddiness with this, but you get some of that harshness. But it's kind of like a very sharp pain, if that makes sense. So right here, the bed is dried out, or the bed, you know, like with other burrs, if the bed is this dried for this long because you're blooming, usually there aren't that. So there's about, I don't know, 5 to 10 seconds where the bed was like, you know, quote unquote fully dry. There wasn't water touching it. And that's usually, when I'm brewing with this, I'm like, when I see that, that's when you get some pain that gets into the cup. So let's see if that happens with this brew. Yeah, I don't know. Then I will have to catch up on the chat, but yeah, even during the pour, usually it's that bloom that I find out where I'm like, okay, that's where things just kind of go. That's a difference between usually like, is it going to be a good brew or a bad brew? I think subsequent pours, if the bed dries out, haven't really had too big of a problem with that. But also, as it's usually that first part where you are having that longer the longer pause between, you know, the first pour, your first bloom, and the second and subsequent pours. That is kind of the difference there. So like each of these pours I usually have about a 10 to 15 second pause, or 15 to 20 second pause between each of them, but that's usually enough time where it's like right when the bed of water goes through, you can start like right as the water is almost leaving the top part of the bed as it's going through, you can saturate the bed with more water, and things usually work out. I don't know if that's fully the case with, we're going to try this with this low agitation brew. Maybe just, having 3.5 mils versus me pouring with 6 to 10 mils a second on an actual kettle. That could be the difference between why these taste good and why they don't taste good, right? But I think in a lot of my experimentations, it's really that first 1 to 2, that first pour that affects everything. So, and I think our grind is pretty good. I would say for this type of coffee, a lot of these lighter coffees, this is a wash coffee, right? Clean coffee, anything in that 3 to 4 minute world is pretty good. So yeah, 3:34 on this. But this is incredible coffee. I mean, it smells so good. It smells really nice. And this is the Jose Martinez Pink Bourbon. I'll catch up on chat in a little, but I think September had this coffee. I think I featured this on X-Bloom. I featured 2 coffees on X-Bloom from September. We might have a third one for Secret Stash. But yeah, it's like super, super nice. So it smells great. Does it? Usually it's harder to smell like, badly brewed coffee when the coffee is this good. It's really going to be down to kind of the flavors. So let's find out. First brew on MPs in a while. Maybe I did it at a meetup. I'm pretty sure I had MPs at a meetup relatively recently. But first brew on MPs. It's been a while. Let's see how bad it is. Good it is. It could be great, Smells nice. Yeah, okay. So, this is where, this is a general recipe that I like that works for a lot of burr sets, a lot of coffees. But with this, there's a lot of good stuff, and it's just stuff in the back, right? Like, this is the issue I have with MPs. Is that, well, let me taste this again before I say something, and I need to let this cool a little bit more, but the presentation of MPs, the acidity presentation, where it's presented on your tongue, the level of presentation is great, right? It's like, this is nice acidity, it's crisp, it's bright acidity, but it's the linger, it's the stuff like right after that I think it's, well, we're gonna brew another one, but I think it's because I let the bed dry out at the beginning, which is like, now there's this like roughness, and it's this lingering ashiness that is just on my tongue. And this is my challenge with MPs, is that like, a lot of these coffees, at least, clean wash coffees, are coffees that I think work really well, that should work really well for this style of burr. You want, after that initial acidity presentation, to have more stuff. Like, you want to experience that coffee a little bit longer, I would say, if you are into this style of presentation, or if you were aiming for this style of presentation, is that like, you get the acidity, you get the vibrancy, you get all that stuff, but then it should probably develop a little bit more. The acidity should linger a little bit more. There should go into like some nice sweetness and stuff. But what's happening here is that to me, to my palate, there's this roughness that just suddenly appears after all of that stuff at the beginning. And that is my challenge with MPs right there, is like, I think there is more that this coffee should have And you're getting that. You clearly are getting that at the beginning, but it's everything at the back, at the end, that it's just like, what happened, you know? And I think that is one could be solved with some water, but I think it really is solved at the beginning part. So let's try this again. But yeah, I'm not hating on this as much as I thought I would hate on it. This is not the worst MP brew I've had. And I think the reason why, yeah, there's stuff at the back that's like not good. I think what's happening, I think the reason why it's still savable is this lower agitation. Like this is still, I think maybe we need to, the grind size seems fine. The difference is maybe we need to lower the flow rate, but I think also lower that first part of the brew there. But you know, MPs. Oh God. Okay, we have so many messages going on. So also, once this really starts to cool down, that's where, you know, maybe some of that nice vibrancy and all that will get overridden by the pain that these MPs have. But the coffee smells great. I mean, this is an incredible coffee. Such a very, very expressive pink bourbon. But I'm going to make a slight recipe adjustment, and we'll go from there. But the thing is even with coffees like this, it's like I want to let them have longer blooms, but I can't have that longer bloom because I get the ashiness from the MPs. So I then need to change my entire brewing approach. And the coffees, and it kind of pushes coffees to, like, you have to change the way you brew, right? You have to push, like, you're forced, you're like, I always think brewing is like an expression, right? Of like what types of coffees you're into, and it's really cool to be able to change how a coffee, change the expression of a coffee through brewing. But if you wanted to if you want things to taste acceptable or taste good with MPs, you're forced to brew in a very narrow style of coffee, which is, you know, maybe it depends on coffee, but generally I'm thinking, you know, low agitation, try to force for a very balanced presentation of coffee. Where, you know, nothing's wrong with that, but even in that context, you then need to look at, okay, maybe I have to make sure that every single pour that I'm doing doesn't have a pause time in it, or you know, like doesn't have a part where it doesn't, you know, the bed doesn't dry out. So that is, you know, like my more, I'm not fully awake, so I'm not like ranting about MPs like crazy, but yeah, okay, so this is now cooled down. Like, usually say coffees when they really, really cool down, or a lot of these lighter roast coffees that really, really cool down, you could experience the coffee more, right? Yeah, it's just like, I get the acidity right into roughness. That is the, you know, I can't win, man. This is the problem with MPs, is it's just like, there's so much more that this burst set, the style of burst set should expose of a coffee, and it shouldn't be a burst set that covers up stuff, and it covers it up with roughness, like harshness. But I will say it is like that initial sip that you get is probably very, very clear if you were coming from a quote unquote blendier burr. But nowadays, you have conical burr sets, like, I mean, I'll just point this one, ZP6. You have conical burr sets that are 90% as good with 90% less pain. Recipes. Oh my God. Okay, we have a lot of questions on recipes. What the hell? Here we go. Let's see. I think there's some recipes in the XBloom Discord somewhere that are pretty good. But yeah, I mean, like, a lot of these coffees, honestly, a lot of if you're using this grinder that's in the machine here, it's very forgiving. So I think, yes, a shorter bloom time will help with this. The problem is that with these coffees, I want longer blooms. I want more stuff, right? And I'm forced to do a shorter bloom. So we're gonna try that, and you know, it's just like I just like dislike that these burrs force you to do certain things, right? It's like if it's supposed to be a transparent burr set, I shouldn't have to. I guess like I shouldn't have to be forced to do certain things that are like so weirdly meticulous to this specific burr set to ensure that my coffees taste good. Now, I'm only talking about light roast coffee too, like specifically washed light roast coffee. If we were brewing that pear cup roast coffee earlier, I think a lot of things I would say be very different. It's like you got to now really adjust the temperatures. You got to really, really start changing things. But let's build a new recipe, guys. Yeah, I'm just like, so on this coffee, we're getting red, ripe, yellow, tropical acidity, and lovely complex finish. This lovely complex finish, you see this lovely, lovely complex finish is covered, totally covered up by a lot of roughness, a lot of harshness, just like rough ashiness on my tongue. This was also what I did taste these burrs. I cupped coffee on these burrs with Preston, Flower Child, and you know, the thing at the back is the problem. Everything else, you know, I would say like body is actually pretty good from this burr set. Acidity presentation, really good. But you don't experience a lot of that because there's this like roughness. And I think this happens because of that initial long bloom that we did. So we're gonna cut down the time. A bit. So I did a 45-second long pause. So the pause that this experiences, and I think I'm gonna get rid of that agitation. Yeah, let's get rid of the agitation. You know, the shake. Let's get rid of that. My agitation at the beginning here. So it was a 45-second long pause. I think I'm gonna shorten this down to 25 seconds. I'm gonna shorten everything between my pours by just a few seconds, so that we always are gonna have a level, like a bed of water on top of the burrs. That I think will solve everything. I think the grind setting is completely fine for this. But let's just try to see, it's like if we keep constant flow rate, what happens? And usually speaking, that is like what works. And I'm gonna keep it the same, where at the end, we just agitate at the end to give us that really flat bed. But otherwise, like, you know, usually you can just kind of, you know, with these lighter roast coffees, you can usually just let them have like longer blooms, you know, 45 seconds to 1 minute long blooms with very transparent burrs, and, you know, it should boost up everything. But with MPs, it's like, I think that's the struggle that I get with this. But otherwise, this coffee is decent. I mean, it's like, I think it would be much better if it wasn't with this recipe. So we're gonna try this again. I'm probably gonna dump this pear out now that I've had enough of it, but the pear recipe on this, if you are subscribed to X Bloom's, you know, the secret stash, that is the coffee that's coming up there. Way cleaner finish. I mean, it's so weird. This is incredibly weird. This is a Costa Rican natural, anaerobic natural. This is like washed pink bourbon. This has a cleaner finish to me because it's not covered up by this. There's no, like, you know, no weird ashiness, no weird roughness that you get from the MPs. But that, I think, can be dialed down. So I only have so many carafes nowadays, but yeah, we're gonna try this again. So yeah, I'm glad I did not brew the pepes, guys. That would be pain to have thrown some of those pepes in here. Now, I will say, though, that I think a lot of this kind of gets overridden. This is why like, if we go back to the conversation of water, you could do something like third wave water. You could have very hard water, and it could just cover up some of this stuff. If you were pushing for a water recipe that just really gives you roundness and sweetness, and covers up that vibrancy and acidity, then this would, these would not be a bad choice. These would give you that dynamic presentation, like the crispness, but it wouldn't be as interesting as actually, I would say, nailing it down correctly. And the nailing it down correctly part of this burr set is very complex. And, this is what I'm saying is like, my hit rate with these burrs are so damn low. And that is the challenge nowadays. Right? It's like, do you go for something that is incredibly transparent, right? Where it's like your hit rate is super low, but if you get it right, you suddenly have like the best cup in the world. Or do you go for something that gives you 80 to 90% as good experience, a presentation performance, but you have a significantly higher hit rate, right? That's why it's like, I don't even care if it's a conical or a flat nowadays. It's like, I'm striving for give me good performance and all that. Also MPs, yeah, I kind of get some stuff stuck in there. But we're gonna try that again. This could also be due to, the burr carrier in this grinder. But I generally experience this a lot, even in something like a P64. Maybe it's less in something like a Zorno or something. But I don't know if you guys can even hear me talk. I'm going to, let's do another carafe. If anyone was curious, the origami sensory sense cup fits on your studio. Look at this. Wow, very cool. Yeah, no, this is an incredible coffee. It's just like, you're just like shooting yourself in the foot brewing this coffee on this with these burrs. Okay, so a modified recipe now where we just try to maintain this constant water on it. Let's see what happens. Everything else that I've kept, the volume is the exact same, just everything is shortened down now. We are also not agitating at the beginning. And this is the thing where it's like, I don't know, whenever I do this, it's like, I don't know if this is enough to fully extract what I think exists in the cup, right? In this coffee. And that's where it's like, I wish I had access to like, higher, longer blooms. And this really forces you to push coffees in maybe a certain direction that won't work for most coffees, right? But let's give this a shot and see if we can dial out the ending bit that tastes a little weird. So now this is just, constant. I'm going to try to keep this constant, keep the flow rate up. And we'll find out. And we're not going to agitate. Agitate manually, at least. We're just going to do that bloom. The bloom is shortened 20 seconds now, so there's still water on the bed here. It's not fully dried out. And let's see, or even if a less amount of it, let's see if it cleans up some of that finish in the cup. But that's the thing is like, man, if you didn't try enough coffees, or like if you didn't know what you were doing, right? Or there we go. That's less time with the bed being dried. It was still dried for a few seconds there, maybe like 2 to 3 seconds, but not 10 to 15 seconds like it was dried before. If you didn't know what you're doing, right, you're like throwing money away. You're literally like throwing money away brewing coffee with these burrs. So yeah, like this is cooled down, really cooled down now. This is where this coffee should be the most expressive, the most opened up. Let's see. Let's give it a taste real quick while this is brewing. Yeah, just like the stuff in the back, man. Doesn't taste good. It just gives me like a really bad mouthfeel. It's lingering. It's so, yeah. Yep. So very now, this recipe before it was a 3:43 brew time. That's the thing is like, I don't know if some of these coffees will taste that good with that shorter brew time, right? Or like you're gonna need to like do other stuff to ensure you reach the extractions that for some of these coffees. And a lot of that time is contact time, I feel. Okay. What are MPs? It's most pain by SSP. Oh god, okay. I don't own an Akaya Orbit. I don't own a lot of grinders. Or like, what I only personally use is Cafetech and the O1. I get to try a lot of grinders because a lot of guys in the community bring them over. But yeah, so this has really finished up a whole minute earlier. Basically because we cut out the bloom, we cut out time between each of these, right? Usually you want the time because it helps open things up, but now let's see, it's like maybe, I'm not going to measure extraction because I just don't feel like doing that right now, but it's like in practical practice, right? If you're brewing this day to day, it's like, this is something you might have to do. Of course, we can keep things consistent because we have a machine here, but like, I'll give that a taste versus this. For espresso, I think these burrs are great on espresso. I think, you would probably have different water for espresso, a little bit harder of a water, things that can help cover things up more. And in something like espresso, I think there's a lot of shit happening. So usually, I feel like more of the good stuff exists more in the cup with this for espresso. But at the same time, for something like espresso, and even for brewed coffee, you might want to have something that is more forgiving, right? Like cast burrs. I still want to have a bloom for these coffees. MPV1. So the thing is, I don't even know. I think I have MPV1s, right? Or like version 1s of MPs. I'm not talking about SSP unimodal version 1, right? Or like now they're brewers. It's so complicated and confusing, and the naming needs to be drastically fixed. The naming also needs to be drastically fixed across all the product lines that SSP has, right? It's like, what the hell is, why do I want low uniformity burrs? What's the opposite of MP in terms of easiest to work with? Try only center pouring. No, I am a big SSP fan. I just am not a big fan of 64 millimeter SSPs. I think like something like ZP6, the freaking X-Plume Studio grinder. Not, of course I'm biased here, but it's like these things invalidate a lot of 64 millimeter SSP burrs. In fact, there's so many 64 SSP burrs that it is, in fact, I think, it's like so confusing. It's like, why would you do this to yourself? You are shooting yourself in the foot when you have 10 different burrs and nobody knows what the hell the differences are. And the actual descriptions are horrible, right? It's like, try it. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. Is good, right? Like, I don't know. I think it's a little bit different when you go to 98. Not to say like you should buy 98 millimeter grinder, but if you buy 98 millimeter grinder, you buy any of those SSP 98 millimeters, they're all great, mostly speaking. And they're all just better than, even I think I would argue like the 80s and 83s, they're just better. They don't have, I think there's less confusion, but also it's like, they're just better in every single category. It's like you want high clarity, it is better. It's also more forgiving. It's also, it's like you solve two issues with the 64 millimeter stuff as you go to 80, 83, 98. And it's like, I don't know. Do you think there's a worthwhile? Oh my god. Okay, there's so many messages. Do you think there is a worthwhile difference between SSP Lab Suite and fellow Gen 2? I mean, like there is, but it's not 300, 200, or what is it? A price difference? It's like not $180 worth difference. Now the thing is this guy? See, this guy made. What is your name? Matthew made the mistake of writing the word SSP Suite Lab or Lab Suite, and he didn't specify which fucking generation of these burrs exist, right? This is the problem, is like they all kind of slightly taste different. And there are absolute silent revisions that have occurred in some of these burrs. I think they're doing, Hanso's done a little bit better job. The guy like starts to write shit on Instagram finally. But the problem is, see, this guy didn't specify what generation. This is the issue. This is the when you talk about what do I recommend, whatever, right? Like this is the issue. And a lot of people, when they talk about burr upgrades, they talk about SSP burrs. Now that doesn't tell you shit, right? I bought SSP burrs for my own, right? And then now we're going to like SSP MP version 1 versus version 2 silent revision versus version 3. And the issue is that it has come to the point where you have to just buy the damn burrs and you look at them. You buy the same burr set and you look at them and you literally you don't even need a microscope to see this shit. You look at it, you're like, wait a second, why does this one look different than this one? And this has been, we've really tried as consumers to try to document the damn differences between all of these. And even from a manufacturer perspective, if you look at, you keep up with the discords and all that, you look at what happens to the manufacturer, to wholesale partners, people who buy the burrs from SSP, you find out that the dude will just change things on you. Like there's this whole entire thing with Frank Dura, from Titus Grinding. Frank Dura, he has this whole message. He's like, yo, like, why you change this on me, man? Like, because the specifically my favorite burr set for high clarity, my two favorite burr sets. I love the Caftech stuff. Caftech will always have a soft spot. I think they're amazing. But very specifically, 98 millimeter SSP, I'm letting this cool before I taste this. 98 millimeter SSP brew burrs, Titus coated, are the most transparent, the highest clarity burr sets I have ever tasted. They are absolutely amazing. And, I think the thing is, originally we were thinking, okay, maybe it's the coating difference, because like we ended up getting the Nautilus next to a P100, with one was a Titus coated SSP 98 brews, and the regular SSP 98 brews that you just buy from SSP. 98 millimeter SSP brews could do espresso, and the Titus coated ones could not do espresso. And we're like, oh, maybe it's the coating differences that are the reason why this one is so less fines than the non-Titus coated ones, right? Turns out that there's some, silent, or the geometry differences. There are actual geometry differences between those two burr sets, or I think when we were testing it, geometry differences between those two burr sets. And then, Hansong literally wants to only make espresso. He said espresso, and he tells Frank Dura, your burr sets, like your version of the 98 SSP brews is like a race car with flat tires. And I was reading this shit, I was like, oh my god, dude. And it's like, yeah, sure, it's not gonna taste good if all your R&D testing is with dark roast and espresso, but you don't even try like light roast, filter brewing, whatever, right? And like, what we are talking about are larger problems that exist in the burr set world. But, I think that's fun, and I like, and I like to try shit, but this is why I like the 98 so much. It's like, the 98 stuff, it's super interesting. And like if you have the money, I would go 98. Like 98's so good. Specifically 98 SSB Titus coated brew burrs. Those are absolutely amazing burr sets. But you know, we've really, like, this is the challenge that I just have. Like, you know, nowadays, you know, all you guys always ask about burrs and shit, right? Everybody always asks about burrs. The problem is like it's not so straightforward, because like it could be more straightforward if the product naming was better. Like if the product naming was just better, it would be easier. There would be less confusion. Oh man, there's stuff in the back that is not the nicest tastings there. Okay, now let's try the same coffee with the lower agitation, about 45 seconds, a minute less contact time. I have a feeling that it's not going to be as well extracted, but it could also be, you know, nicer tasting, right? Yeah. So here's the thing. This is less interesting of a cup to me. There are less dynamics going on. Less acidity has been extracted because, you know, we didn't get that bloom at the beginning. We had to really shorten things up, and we didn't get that contact time that I think a lot of these coffees really benefit from. However, there is no pain at the end, right? Or less pain at the end. We'll really find out once this cools down, but it's just like the dynamic presentation of acidity, like that sharpness and crispness that I think these burrs are really meant for, that they work really well for. It's like you have to shoot yourself in the foot there, because it's like, do I want crisp acidity but with pain, or do I want not as, you know, no crisp acidity with less pain, right? And it's like, but then these are supposed to be burrs that present crisp acidity. See the issue here? It's like I just like, you know, these burrs are going for one thing, but I can't brew easily to get that thing. I have to change how I brew, and then I lose out on all the interesting things on what makes this burr set, you know, good. It's like, yeah, there's a little bit of that sharpness, that crispness that you get, but this to me tastes a little under extracted, but it doesn't have that stuff at the back. So how do you solve this, right? Well, now we have to iterate again, right? We either can change grind size, we can either change, you know, maybe what we need to do is just like mega low agitation, but I'm like, man, mega low agitation with these burrs, it gets rid of a lot of that character that is supposed to be what, like, you can experience a lot of this stuff in espresso, 100%, right? You taste these burrs on espresso, like, holy shit, I get it. And it does translate to filter, but it translates to filter in such a very specific way, which is I just, that is my problem with these burrs, man. Is like I can't win, man. I can't win. You can't win. There will probably be a DF98 at 100%, man. If you want to buy, I think DM, there's like an email if you want to buy 98 Titus coated. If we can try brewing S-Works and do a long steep, but you know, I think that would help doing a steeped bloom, but the challenge is you then end up with that immersion taste. Like, you can't get that searing clarity, searing acidity. And maybe I've become cynical across my coffee brewing, or, you know, as I've tried more shit, right? Like, before, I didn't really get a chance to, like, try all the 98s, and this was all you had. You know, if this is all you got, this will probably be the clearest burr set you'll ever taste. But if you taste what else is out there, and you taste how good conicals have gotten, it's like, man, why would you put yourself through this? Why would you throw money away? That is like the thing, is that when I think about brewing coffee at home, I think anybody would appreciate a larger hit rate, right? If you're spending money, if you're buying $20 to $30 bags of coffee, why would you want to have worse tasting coffee, right? Or like, why would you want to run the risk of like only having 2 out of the 10 cups you brew every single bag, whatever the number of doses you do, like your hit rate be so damn low? And that is a challenge with these. Unless you specifically want to taste every single coffee presented in this very narrow parameter, right? That's also the other thing with these burrs is like, if I don't brew them in this very narrow presentation, a lot of stuff doesn't taste as good as I feel like it could taste. But I do think, if I were to pick between these 2 cups, I do think this lower agitation thing is more pleasant, right? But knowing what these burrs can taste like, it's like, why? It's like, that is just sad. This low agitation, not letting the coffee really open up is just sad compared to what is possible with these burrs. And that is the challenge. It's like, if you know what these things can do, that's the thing that sucks about MP brewing, man. It is getting better as it cooled down, but this does not have anywhere near the level of acidity presentation that this first brew that we did has. Of course, first brew with pain, a lot of pain, versus second brew with way less pain, but a much boring cup, much more, it's like really taking this burr set and it's like, why are you even brewing it this way, right? Yeah, like this is so much more interesting, but it's just got that stuff in the end that's not good. Now let's try doing a steeped bloom. I have never actually brewed MPs recently with a steeped brewer. This could help bring us things in, but I have a feeling that you have to really be careful after the first steeped bloom. Like the second is when the second pour or third or fourth pour is like, we got to really start to get water on it. Because just in my experience, and I have tried this on P64, is like, if you let that first bloom dry out, you'll get pain. Yeah, MPs sound terrible. MPs sound horrible, and they are horrible to deal with. Just buy like Cast, man. Just buy like any other burr set, and you will experience 80 to 90% of how good these are, but without the pain. Unless you're really, if you can dial in MPs though, you're a god. You can dial in any burr set. But it's like, if I compare this burr set, just like, I see no reason. I mean, if you had this, I see no reason to use MPs when you have something like a studio grinder, you have ZP6. I think this on espresso tastes significantly better than this on espresso. Maybe it's a little bit better on a Zerno, right? But for the price point of a Zerno, it's a little bit challenging to justify when there are other grinders out there, and you can start going up into just better burr sets, right? You can just escape 64 millimeter. It's like, I just think, things like the Zerno, we go blind, we go, perfectly aligned carrier, you have to slow feed, you do all these things. It's a Band-Aid fix for the problem that exists, which is the MPs, right? It's like, why do you need to spend all this money on a grinder? Like, if you specifically like MPs, sure, fine. But it's like, there's a lot of shit that you gotta do just to make MPs taste good. And at that point, why don't you just get something that is better in every single way? Right? Like, that is the challenge that I have with people asking about things. Is like, if you're gonna drop 2 to 2.5K, dude, just get something bigger. Because when you escape 64 millimeter world, everything is a little more forgiving, everything is a little bit better. And it's kind of interesting too, because it's like, it's just so interesting to me, because it's like, the larger stuff like 80, 83, 98. Now, I have not tried 83 MPs, but all the high clarity burr sets in 80, high clarity burr sets in 98, they are clearer and better than MPs, but they do not have this unforgiving nature about them. And I don't know why. I really don't know why. but they taste better. It's like everything that the MP does, but better, right? That is, but also, you know, you get to the naming scheme, right? But that's like what 98HU do, right? 98HU do everything 64MP does, but better. So we're gonna try steeped bloom here. I do think this coffee is a little bit, I mean, not this coffee, but this burr is a little bit better on immersion, but still painful. Still is a very, very painful burr to deal with. So we're gonna go from there. Yeah, Carlo, you get that Nautilus brew. If you get the SSP 90, the Titus coated, or you bought the brew burrs from Frank, those are fucking amazing. Those are so good. They are the clearest burr sets I've ever tasted. So amazing. I would own. I don't own one. I don't own those burrs. You know, it's kind of like surprising because I like them so much, but I'm kind of, those burrs just present things in such a weird way. They, you know, they're unforgiving in nature. They're so clear. They're unforgiving in that regard. But that is why they're like, it's just like, if you are going for that style, you're going for that max clarity burr set, it makes 100% sense why you would, you know, get those burrs. Yeah, so such amazing. It takes all the information about coffee and compacts it every sip. Meisens are good. Meisens. What's the best not 3K grinder like the Flat Max 2 and 01? 078, right? That's like the thing, is if you want that high clarity shit nowadays, just buy a 078. Buy a Time Warp. You don't need to put SSPs in there. I think you would shoot yourself in your foot if there were 78 SSPs. I think they would not be as good as the Time Warpers. Everybody always was like, I want to buy the 78, but I don't want to buy it. You know, the thing that's putting me on the fence is the fact that there are you know, no SSP burrs for it. But it's like 078 stock burrs are really, 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 really good. And it's like, I don't know, man. I don't understand. I just like don't understand like why people always go aftermarket with some of this stuff. Like, why do you want aftermarket so much if you've never tasted first party Time Warp burrs? You're just like, in your entire purchase decision is based on you wanting to put SSPs, and like if you didn't know the world of SSPs, man, like it's just pain, right? Like a lot of it is painful. But 078 are absolutely amazing. 078S is really good. I think the existence of the 078 and 078S invalidates most 64 millimeter SSP burrs. That has been my opinion ever since tasting the 078 and 78S. Is like those burrs are just, I mean, like literally the stock burrs and those grinders are just, they're great. I'm gonna go and Oshi this. I'm using, I think, the Zero Hero filters. Oh, no, this might be just a random Kalito. Oh, this is a Kalito 185 that I have laying around. We're going to use this. We're going to do the long steep. We're going to keep something kind of similar, but we'll make a new recipe specific for S-Works, and we'll see if it's any better. But, yeah, I would say, like, this is the challenge with MPs. Gonna dump this first brew out, actually. Dump this pain out. Yeah, we're probably going to. I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna probably get off like in the next 15 to 20. I'm gonna do one more brew and then get off. I gotta get lunch, man. So no Robert coming by. I gotta do other stuff. I don't know. I just think, now a lot of the coffee I've been tasting nowadays has been off of Flat Max SLM or the Studio. And I don't know. I'm just like, man, Studio is such a we made the Studio too good. That's the problem. We made this grinder so good. We made it too good. But yeah, I would really argue that the Studio grinder here invalidates so many other grinders. Here, I'll slow feed. Slower feed. Also, technically, I am slow feeding because on Gen 1, the beans get stuck at the top here. See, it's like the beans are getting stuck. They're not going in. Forget him there. Stick your fingers in here to push the beans in. Okay, there we go. That took a while. Yeah, you always get some beans stuck on MPs. Okay. All right, this is an incredible coffee. So I think we can actually keep the same recipe that we were doing earlier, but I'll just manually open and close the valve. The issue with the S-Works and a lot of these steeped brewers or these variable flow brewers is if you steep it for more than about 15 to 20 seconds, because the extraction efficiency is so high, you get some muddiness. Okay, so I'm just going to run the same recipe, and we're just going to do the first part steeped, and we'll just manually open it. I got some water. Okay, so pour the water, count, I don't know, 10 seconds. Let's go until 30. Do not know if you guys can see that. Okay, I'm going to open it up, and I'm just going to keep everything open for the rest of this. The valve on the S-Works is fully open. The bed is now kind of drying out, but we got that steeped bloom. So let's see if that fixes anything. The rest of the pours on this are going to be exactly the same as the second brew we did, which was that lower agitation brew. But it should clean things up, hopefully. Hopefully that longer steep at the beginning, because it's steep, will give us that vibrancy that we were getting in that first brew. And hopefully because we're doing lesser contact time between, we didn't let the bed fully dry out, we're just really adding water on it. it should hopefully clean things up. Is there any reason for a coffee consumer to buy an EG1 EK over the P01? I mean, yeah, if you want to, you can get like all those grinders will have different burr sets, like 80, 98. You can do all these things that specifically give you different presentations. Yep, we get that really nice level of water, and it's just constantly at the top, and it's going to go down. Hopefully it's good. 98 brews like everything up front, no linger. 80 LF is like balance, like this structure, and then it's like linger down, longer finish. Both are such amazing burr sets. Cool. Okay, so now we have the steeped bloom version of this. I feel that this will be pretty good. Still, an incredible coffee. But I'm gonna taste this and then I'm gonna hop off because we've been streaming for a bit of time and I gotta get some lunch. I don't know. I'll post in the what's for dinner thing. It's a mix. This feels like, I mean, this is work, okay? This is work. I use the machine all the time for work. So a little different, you know, sometimes you just don't want to use the machine, right? So I like to hand pour a lot. Again, for specific, or I've mentioned this many times before, specifically for what I like is, you know, mega high agitation, dump all the water in, right? This is not going to do that. This can't do that. It can only do 3.5 mils a second. So, you know, I still like to do my high agitation stuff. And I do that by hand. But the thing that we've been able to really accomplish now is to be able to, you know, from a brewing perspective, it's having that range of what is possible to brew. The fact that I can brew, say, on an automated machine, it's very cool. Okay. Whoa. Steep bloom, not a fan of this. Gotta make sure the camera don't overheat. I have to turn on the fan on the camera. Okay, I'm tasting double bad here on steeped bloom. Maybe I steeped it too long? Let me let this cool down. It's just like, whoa. It's kind of, I'm kind of getting that issue with the immersion aspect. You know, again, very efficient at extracting at the beginning, but ugh. Whoa, this might be the worst cup I've had all day. Damn. Okay. Wow, that's bad. Or like, so maybe this is user error, probably user error on my end, which is I probably could have just immediately opened the valve after the first few seconds. I'm getting a bit, that's the thing with high, you know, efficiently extracting burrs nowadays is like, if you let things steep for too long in like valve things or in an immersion, you get a lot of muddiness. So what I'm experiencing is like muddiness plus MP pain right now. Maybe when this cools down, we'll get some better stuff out of it. But like, wow, why does this taste so bad? What the hell? This brew, okay, like, yeah, it's just like too much ashiness and muddiness in here. I think 54 Steelies don't have these problems. Yeah, wow. What happened here? Why does this taste so bad? Okay. We get some acidity at the end there, but it is just like, it's like, it tastes like if I'm brewing filter coffee on an H0. It's like that type of, it's like nothing's going on here. It's like really, really muddied. I mean, it does taste extracted, that's the thing, but like, okay, versus the not steeped bloom. Let's taste the difference. This is way better. But nowhere near the levels of acidity that I know this burr set can accomplish. This has still kind of that back part. It's like, it's covered up. But, wow, this first, what the hell? Second brew, very, most approachable, but nothing near what the level of the first brew we did, which was all of that vibrancy and acidity with the pain. Less pain, no vibrancy, or much lower vibrancy and acidity, and then steep bloom. Steep bloom is less pain. Actually, not a lot of pain in this one, but very, very nerfed and muted acidity, probably because of that initial steep being too long. Even though it was only a 10-second steep when you're brewing on like the 98s and whatever, right? You can do 20-second long steep, no problems at all. Yeah, well, to be fair, I've never brewed steep brew with this before. This is the first time I ever did it, and yeah, it requires a lot of dialing in. Maybe you only need a steep like that. Like, this is the problem is, okay, imagine I was brewing this by hand. So I gotta dump the water in, and then I gotta like go in here and like instantly open it, and I gotta go back, and then like I gotta constantly pour water on it slowly and slowly and slowly, right? Or I guess, mellow drip it, right? Yeah, that's like the thing is like, do you really want to be spending more effort to brew coffee in a very specific way? But I mean, I've had that first brew that we did, which is that ultra crisp acidity. If you can get it with no pain, right? And this is what I'm talking about. 2 out of 10 brews will be like crisp acidity, really nice presentation with no pain. That happens like 10 to 20% of the time. And like, is that really worth it? Or maybe you're just like, not very interesting tasting coffee, and you get, it's like immersion, right? But then with this, I'm like, maybe I could have just done AeroPress and probably would have tasted better. Now there's acidity coming out, but it's really in the back now, and it's like there's this muddiness that's covering up, where usually when you taste these burrs, it's like more upfront acidity, more vibrant, more crisp acidity, but yeah, and that was a slow feed too. So yeah, maybe, like, I do think that second brew that I did, most people would like that, right? This would be still higher clarity, still more vibrant, still more transparent tasting than, stock burrs on here, Gen 2 burrs, so on and so forth, right? But it is not the style of coffee that I think works really well for this burr set, right? It's like the brewing parameters are so narrow, the dial space is so narrow, and again, I'm using a coffee that is very clean, very transparent, very, checks all these boxes. If I was not using a coffee like this, it would be worse, right? It could just be like significantly, it's like you could take everything that I just talked about and throw it out the window. If I was using something a little more developed, if I was using something a little less clean, right? It's like I have to develop very specific brew parameters for each of those coffees, right? Which it was just like, that is what dialing is, right? But it's like, when the hit rate is so low, it makes things incredibly frustrating, right? It's like, imagine I was brewing a very premium coffee, right? I mean, this is a premium coffee, but like, you know, I was brewing something more expensive, right? And it's like, each of those doses costs some dollars. But yeah, okay. We've been on for a bit of time. This is MP, probably stream one of many. We have to do MP Espresso. We'll do MP Espresso one day. I just am busy next week. I might do some streams in New York, so we'll do some of that. We might stream. Do not know. I have some videos coming out, hopefully. It's been kind of weird because one of my drives died, so I think I lost a lot of progress on some of those videos, so we got to redo it. But I uploaded that Burundi video, so really check out that Burundi video. The presentation is such an amazing presentation. There are only 250 boxes of that Burundi coffee from Passenger. So, you know, if you guys could check that video out, share it and whatever. I think it's such an important thing to talk about, right? And I'm not the one talking about it. I just wanted, you know, I'm very lucky to have been able to experience that and, you know, hear about Burundi coffee and all of that. I mean, Burundi to me, it has been, you know, I like get it now. Even though, you know, the flavor profiles, a lot of Burundi coffees I'm not really the biggest fan of, but there are newer washing stations like Ninga and all of that are just amazing. You know, you guys can hear a bit more about that by watching that video. But yeah. Oh, yeah, if you're going to the event in New York on Friday, that'd be awesome. I mean, you come hang out with me. I think I might bring this exact machine over. So we're going to be over there. I might bring the S-Works. I have not figured out what I'm doing. I'm going to pack tomorrow, but I'm going to be in town to run that event on Friday in New York. It's a event with my good friends at the Bean and Bean and Wilfred Lamassa Sr. We're going to have, so he's going to be brewing coffee himself. We're going to have some other coffees there too, but he's going to be brewing, I mean, it is amazing to have coffee, you know, from the producer, brewed by the producer. That is very, very rare. So, you know, if you guys are in town, come to that event. If you got, you know, get tickets, the Eventbrite and all that is in the Discord, all that, you know, you guys will find it. But yeah. Thanks, guys, for tuning into the stream. I'll be around. I'll be online probably next week. I don't know when. But yeah, see you guys later. Goodbye.